Hello, Scott here, and in my dirty red Angels baseball cap because I desperately need a haircut. And this is a pull from the shelf where I focus upon additions to my collection of games and things that I picked up over the years that have either upon arrival immediately made their way onto the shelf, never really gave them any sort of attention, or purchased them and completely forgotten about them. That doesn't mean that these games that I have aren't wonderful, aren't viable, aren't completely usable and serviceable in any way whatsoever. It just goes to show that a lot of us are guilty of, supplementing our hobby more so than is necessary. And some of those that we are most guilty of is the purchasing of zines, which is what I'm highlighting here today. I think it's fair to say that I am just as guilty as anyone within this hobby of having no problem supporting the wonderful creators and designers and artists and everyone that's involved in making these wonderful little booklets to help supplement our hobby, add a little bit of color to it, and otherwise, enlighten our imagination further to give us some, a little bit of ideas outside of the norm that you may find in your more standard role-playing games. But for the most part, as you can see from the stack here, which doesn't really equal the amount that I have, but a lot of times, they show up and they give a little flip through, and onto the shelf they go, awaiting someone else of less discriminating taste. So, so nothing better than the purpose of the silly little video that I'm doing to highlight games that I have that I've really never looked at or that deserve a lot more attention than I've given them, is to maybe reignite my interest in the games that they have, but more so to give them the proper attention they deserve to not only, highlight what they have to offer, but maybe interest, those who see this video in, pursuing and purchasing those games themselves. Thus, supporting our hobby, and the circle of life continues on. So I've grabbed a stack from my shelf of these zines. No particular order, no particular reason, just randomly. Now, mind you, my shelving system is not in anywhere near any sort of organized method or manner. So even if these were all by themselves, there still would be no rhyme or reason to them. But I grabbed some of these. My intention is to just randomly pull a couple of these from here and, go through them, highlight what they have to offer. And this will probably be a two-part series here, I guess is the best term to use, because even the short stack here, I think, is far too many to just cover in a single video. So we'll see how we do. Just like my unboxing videos of stuff that arrives, there's really no professional aspect involved in this. Unscripted, just kind of like turn the camera on and here I am. But you'll still see my head kind of tilt to the left over here just to make sure that everything is still kind of in frame, I guess. But anyways, so yeah, let's get through some of these scenes, see what they have to offer, and then, we'll move on hopefully to a part two at a later date. So, bear with me. There's no editing involved in this, so I'm going to close my eyes and just kind of shuffle these around a little bit and pick one out and start from there. So, eyes closed, kind of shuffle, and shuffle. Okay, let's see. What do we got? Boom. All right. All right, let's kind of stack these over here. Kind of make sure that's in the center. All right. So what do we have here? We have Gateway to Adventure. What this is a module T1, the Hidden Hand of the Horla, for use with character levels 1 through 3. Designed for use with old school essentials, and created by Appendix and Entertainment. Now, I know for a fact that this particular one here was one that I had purchased after from a third party. I believe, well, I could be mistaken. I either purchased it directly from Appendix N Entertainment or from maybe Exalted Funeral, which, some of these zines that I have here will be from there. Even though there may be some involvement within the prior zine quests or whatever, a lot of times is once zine quest is over, these are highlighted and sold elsewhere. And that's, especially, which is kind of nice, especially for those who get involved in zine quests a little bit early, and those zine kind of purchases stack up rather quick, and something kind of drops into the, drops in later on through it, and it's something you'd really like to get, but you've already used up your budget for zine quest. So, all right. So the Hidden Hand of Horla. Just kind of go open this up. Yep. So this starts off, with a wonderful illustration of, looks like some sort of runic puzzle. And likewise, a map of what I would safe to assume is the actual hidden hand. Spoilers, of course. I think this goes without saying when you're dealing with any sort of RPG book. I mean, there's always going to be spoilers. So let's just safely assume that that's the case in most of these. First off, this is wonderful. The fact that it's a separate cover. It's a solid piece of cardboard with some wonderful illustrations on there and the information on the back. But likewise, rather than create a separate handout, you do have what seems to be a handout of the puzzle on the left side and a small little map on the other. How usable these are is entirely up to the DM and the format that they're playing in. But with that, it's evocative enough and has enough information here that it can be utilized in most situations at the table, and very handy. If little teeny tiny maps that sometimes there's little teeny tiny handouts that come with some of these zines, but I'm going to lose them. I don't know about you, but eventually they're going to fall out and get lost somehow. But having this on the cover, there's a less chance of that actually happening. So, once again, Module T1, The Hidden Hand of Horla by R.J. Thompson, an adventure for character levels 1 through 8, and written design layout by R.J. Thompson, editing by Amy Cole and David A. Hill, cartography and tower image by Dyson Logos, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 international license. Fantastic. Okay. And continuing on. So, here we are. So just going to kind of do a little page through of this. Let's see here. Using this module, the Hidden Hand of Horla is an adventure module intended to be used with old school essentials, retro adventure game, with and without the advanced genre rules. As such, it should be easily adapted to other rule sets based upon old school editions of the world's most popular role-playing game. So supplementing OSC and being usable with other old school adventure RPGs, Gateway to Adventure modules make several assumptions. In the true spirit of the early game, adventures may contain encounters which appear too difficult for a party of adventurers of the levels for which the adventures are designed. Some adversaries, traps, etc. may need to be avoided. In the early days of the hobby, it was not assumed that the party could defeat every challenge they came up against. Sometimes it is best that the party avoid or negotiate with the foe rather than fight it. Sometimes an enemy may be able to be defeated by using cunning and knowledge rather than combat and special abilities. And it continues on. So a lot of that's going to be assumed by those who play old school games or old school essentials itself. That's kind of like the general format and expectations for those who play within those games. So, but it's good to include that for someone who may have, purchased this for other RPGs, because that's wildly different than how currently Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition at least, conducts itself with how it handles adventures and its player characters and whatnot. So background for the players, background for the referee. Generally speaking, the format itself it's good. I mean, once again, the expectations within a lot of zines, which I'm not going to go into too much here because we're going to be dealing with that in the Titterpigs podcast with Keith, where we're primarily going to be focusing on zines, where they come from, what actually constitutes a zine and so on. So I'm going to avoid that a little bit here and just focus more on the material. But for the most part, I mean, just kind of generally speaking, if I, going back to where, if this was the first time I received it and, took a look at it, I don't really see much nigglings I would have with this. I mean, I don't know. It's little things such as the rumor table here and the just the offset bit and some of the, bordering the aspects of the margins of the bar line here and whatnot. I mean, some people, this hits them harder than it does me. I kind of overlook stuff like that if it's glaring, but I've been hanging out with so many editors and so many reviewers these past couple of years that a lot of their nasty ways have rubbed off on me. And so I see the matrix now in regards to certain things like that, and hard to ignore it. But continuing on. So, I mean, it's a variety of different artwork and artwork styles, but not jarring to the point where, it looks like they literally took it from, a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Clip art type stuff, free art and whatnot. They're just to fill up the pages. And I mean, there is a difference in the style. I mean, initially we've got these more detailed, little bit more, evocative action scenes here. And then we go to something here in the front, which tends to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say less detail, but its format is more, I guess, cartoony is the word I'm looking for. Cartoon-ish. I don't know. I don't know what the term it is I'm looking for, but we'll just pass it on. It's different, but once again, not such a shock where in other RPGs or other zines where you flip the page and you're like, my God, this is totally, it just takes you out of reading the book. So behold the tower. We've got the information on the tower itself, along with the numerical aspects of where you will be venturing to reference on the map. Okay, so it seems your players are going to be exploring this, this statuesque hand of a building and finding the mysteries inside. So, or looking for the Horla, I guess is what it is. So then we continue on to the Handmage Beckons. Dare ye approach? So kind of like, So here we are. This image may be used as a handout to aid players in understanding the layout of the tower when deciding how to enter. Permission is granted to copy or print this image for use in gameplay. Fantastic. I mean, so there we are. Most of these come with the PDF version when you purchase these zines. But something like this is relatively easy to copy and print as opposed to other aspects. I mean, it's black and white. It's a small image. It's not going to be expensive to throw this on your scanner and print it if necessary, or print it out if you have the PDF. But it is large enough and detailed enough that without spoiling the map itself, it's going to give your players an idea of where they're going, which is great. Because a lot of times in dealing with, certain levels and non-standard buildings and whatnot that aren't necessarily dungeons, so to speak, it can give you what part of the hand are we at? Well, you're kind of, you know where your love line is, and whatnot, which I'm sure you could use if you wanted to do that. But this makes it easier, and especially you don't have to hold up your hand if it's dirty, which mines tend to be because I'm just constantly working with a variety of stuff. So anyway, so we got the appendices, the Appendix A dealing with the different monsters that are within the book, and each one seems to have their own image, and this image actually pertains to the monster itself, which is fantastic. Not necessarily just a randomized image. New magic user spells in Appendix B. And then we have Appendix N, which I would dare say they better have one considering their name. Inspirational media for this particular game. Let's see here. So we got inspirational writing. Guy or Guy du Maupassant, the Horla, and Robert E. Howard, the Tower of the Elven. Okay, that makes sense. Film, Diary of a Madman. I have never seen that, but I will definitely look it up now. Television, Twin Peaks. Very familiar with that. And then music inspiration, which is always nice. I mean, this is not necessarily needs to be part of, of people who do this kind of thing, but it is great to know the music that they listen to or music that, kind of complements the adventure or whatever it is that they have. So we got Mega Colossus, as Colossus, and the Sepulchre of the Mirror Warlocks. Nope, but it sounds like something that I'm definitely going to be looking up. Black Pyramid, Dead Can Dance, Aeon Hawkwind in Search of Space, Mannheim Steamroller, Fresh Air 5, and Mike Oldfield, Hergest Ridge, and Omadon. So a couple of those names ring a bell. Nothing that I've listened to any extent, but worth looking up. I've done this before with many a game where if they have these playlists, I really enjoy it. Maybe even having some sort of ambient music that they're listening to, and it definitely supplements the game and inspires the players and GM alike. All right, and then we close on that, and there we are. So that's one zine. I want to say that this kind of, this is nothing against the material that's within this, but this is kind of, falls into what your standard expectations should be in regards to what you receive as a zine. Now, quality and material is going to fluctuate greatly, but this is something that I wouldn't be disappointed in whatsoever. Usable, the adventures are clear, concise, the format is fine for me, maybe questionable for others. And if I'm not mistaken, I've spoken with the author of this at one point in time in a chat, and I think I could be wrong, it's this or one of their other ones that they're redoing, that they are either making a version 2 of it or recreating because there might have been some, personal issues with how it turned out, which is fine. I mean, I could say I love this thing to no end, but if the creator isn't happy with it and they want to change it, by all means, it's their creation. Do with what they want. And if they feel like making another version it will make it better, great. That's fantastic. Never, be satisfied, but don't sit on your hands if you're not happy with something. I know we all have deadlines to deal with, and especially when it comes to Zine Quest. But a lot of times these things come out last minute. But yeah, if you want to improve upon it, improve upon it. I don't see anything wrong with that. Nor do I feel that it ends up faulting the prior material either. So, Gateway to Adventure, Appendix N Entertainment, look them up. Give them a look. And I could be wrong if this is the one they're recreating. I know one of their adventures they're redoing, but they do have other. I do know that they have a variety of other adventures available for you to take a look at. But definitely take a look at this one also. So there we go. My head being cut off. Yeah, it is kind of, if I lean in a little bit too far. So I'll try to keep out of it. Sorry, but moving on. All right, next up, what do we have here? We have Goblinville Gazette #1. No information there on the back. I am somewhat familiar with this. I do remember that this was, widely regarded as a zine of interest when it came out in Zine Quest. I don't remember which one it was because of, the pandemic and the lockdown. The last couple of years just kind of gets mushed together. But, and likewise, I really don't recall if this was something that I purchased from Exalted Funeral, which I believe it was, and it may still be there, but, you can look for yourself, or if I actually backed this from Zine Quest. So still, the cardboard cover, these kind of standard format size. We have here the contents and the general introduction. So what is Goblinville? Let's take a look. Goblinville is a fantasy adventure role-playing game about broke goblins and the town they live in. 3 to 5 players will create and play a band of goblins in search of treasure to support themselves and their town. Their job is to venture forth into the wilds and see if they survive. One player is the Goblin Master. Their goal is to put interesting perils between the goblins and what they want. Okay, fantastic premise. And definitely something that sounds like fun. I don't know if this would be something that would be an ongoing campaign time situation, depending on what they describe here. But it definitely sounds like a wonderfully fun palate cleanser of a situation that you can use in between some heavier games that you're playing, or definitely maybe something that you can use in a convention type game. Just off the bat, I mean, it's not a direct correlation, but what rung my bell when I started reading this was the premise is kind of, not exactly, but a little bit similar to Kobolds Ate My Babies, or babies. Probably babies because they're hungry. And that's a wonderfully fun game. A just hilarious palate cleanser, a beer and pretzel style type game, and fantastic at like a con. If you see Kobolds Ate My Baby at a con and there's an opening spot, take it. I mean, obviously it depends on the person running it, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to have an absolute blast. But anyways, back to this. So Goblinville. So what do you need? The following things are needed to play Goblinville. People. You need 1 person to be the Goblin Master and 3 to 5 others to play the party of goblins. Fair enough. Everyone should have a pencil and whatever snacks they'll need. Dice. The Goblin Master needs 2 matching dice, a danger die and a harm die. Okay. Each player needs a single die in unique color, their action die. Fair enough. You all share a pool of 5 or 6 matching die for the middle of the table. These are the dice for twists, traits, titles, injuries, and illness. You all share a single sorcery die. It's especially good if this is a weird color. Character creation, town events, and other tables use a 20-sided die, D20. Okay. So, right off the bat, you are going to need a handful of dice, and not just random ones, because matching colors, 5 or 6. So if you end up having 5 people at your table, that's 25 dice, randomly thrown in a pile. It seems like not extreme, not unheard of. It's not inexpensive to buy these giant sets of 6-sided dice that match color. So, but just know for a fact that there's, the larger group, there's going to be a lot of dice. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so the Goblinville sheet bundle is available on our Kickstarter page. Fantastic. And on drivethrough.com, store Narrative Dynamics. So there you go. From it, you'll need a copy of the character sheet for each player, the adventure tracker, the town sheet, and the town map. Very good. Okay, so I'm just going to read the setup. For each player creates a goblin. Following the steps on page 12, when they get to step 7, they get to tell the other players about their goblin. Okay? They will fill in details freely and ask other questions for ideas. When others introduce their goblins, they ask questions about what interests them. Great. So, immediately the players are already actively involved with each other. The GM listens while the players make their goblins. They will note which job the goblins have and mark the relevant locations on the town sheet. The GM will ask questions, suggest titles, and take notes, especially about jobs, titles, and bosses. Okay? The GM comes up with an opportunity using the guidelines in the Goblin Master on page 20. They describe the premise of the opportunity and how the goblins could profit, answering any questions they have. Play will proceed following the rules set out in Playing the Game on page 4. Great. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of start paging through this a little bit. Once again, the neat, clean format, looks wonderfully done. Font wise, this, and that's key when you're dealing with smaller pages. And in my opinion, this is always going to be my opinion. When you're in zines, certain things, when it comes to font, remember that these are smaller format pages, and, not everybody is going to have aging eyes like myself. But some people, even bad eyesight is not indicative of age. And, so making things harder to read by cramming too much information into these smaller pages using a very unreadable or small font, just so you can get everything, to limit the size of your zine, to reduce some of the costs. I get it, but know that your finished product, may be looked less upon just because of that. So, but spacing, format, perfectly usable. I'm not having to squint or get out a magnifying glass at this level to read it, thankfully, maybe someday. But continuing on. So it sounds like it just the premise just right off the front makes me want to run it. Get 3 people or so together and definitely try out this game just to see what it is that they're trying to do with this. So you got a choose your job or roll a d20. So there's random tables involved in here, or choose what you want. I myself personally am a giant fan of random tables. I like letting the fates decide what becomes of most of my characters depending on the game that I am in, and I work with the materials that I have. Even if I have a premise, I feel that you can definitely it's clay. Now, granted, you may not get the right color clay that you want. You may not get the right type of clay. You may not get the size or the shape of what it is you're trying to work with, but work with it you still can. My personal opinion. So, after you create your goblin, then we go into the town. So, town procedures. Let's see here. Whenever the goblins get back to town, follow these steps. So they go out on an adventure to grab stuff, and they get back. So they're going to deal with town events, gather scratch, room and board, sleeping in the street, go to work, gear up, look for leads, and then leave town again. Okay. So locations in detail. And then the Goblin Master. Okay, so as the Goblin Master, your goal is to describe the fantastic, perilous world the goblins live in. To place adversity between the goblins and what they want, and to present plausible dangers when they take risky action. But you aren't just a mere overlord. You will fling monsters and opposition in the goblins' way, to be sure, but you're also their biggest fan. When they succeed by the skin of their pointy teeth, you triumph as well. Okay. So here's a summary of the first session. Easy enough. Goblin creation. Great. Introductions. When the players get to step 8, they will introduce their goblins and perform steps 8 through 12. Fair enough. So walking through the steps, wonderful. Wonderful. A lot of these zines, are supplements to games and don't really do any hand-holding in certain regards. You listen to this conversation, suggesting titles. Yep, as mentioned earlier. Opportunity. Whether using the Pit of Mirrors or writing and adventure, maybe that's and writing and adventure, you should find hooks in the player's choices to logically connect them to the impending adventure. Alternatively, you may use the opportunities table to figure out while they're striking out and add this to the conversation. It is implied that the goblins are gathering for an adventure, but it should feel organic as to their impetus. Finishing touches. The players can resume their creation process on their own until their goblin is complete, and then embark. Okay. Monsters and whatnot. Okay, there's a small bestiary, depending on where you are from. And then we have the adventure 1, the Pit of Mirrors. Wonderfully detailed. There's a lot of information here. And I think they mentioned that you can download the full map from their website to help out with this. But, not only is it detailed within the adventure, but a wonderful little drawing to give you a sense of scope and further detail. And this is Briff. He lives in Goblinville. He's here to tell you that Goblinville Gazette number 2, Monsters and Mazes, is coming soon. New adventures and terrible creatures. And later this year, Goblinville Gazette number 3, Picaresque, Dastards and Deviations. 2 alternative settings taking the Goblinville engine, okay, further than you thought possible. Fair enough? Okay. And this is core concept design writing by Michael Dunn O'Connor. Editing, development, writing, illustration, layout by Eric Swanson. Typefaces used are Avera Sans TC, 8 Days a Week, Minion Pro, and Pocolaro. I think I pronounced that right. This is from 2019. So, supported, I assume. I couldn't tell you if they actually fulfilled, the obligations here in the back. Sometimes you will get these coming soon scenarios come up, and due to a wide variety of circumstances, they don't really come through. But not to worry. I do believe that there at least is 1 or 2 additional zines to support Goblinville out there. But yeah, this sounds like a delightfully fun little game. It's not. This is a game itself. This is not a zine to supplement someone else's game. Someone created a delightful little game of playing broke goblins who need to go out and scavenge the realm to find stuff that they need to support them and their village. Apparently, is the gist I got from it, and hilarity and other things probably ensue. So yeah, this has sit on my shelf for quite a while, and this is probably one of the reasons why I enjoy doing this, because this has definitely sparked an interest in me in maybe trying it out with my kids or something with friends, maybe throw it online. We're all a bit busy at the moment, but I'm dealing with larger campaigns, but sometimes those can get a bit long in the tooth, and having something like this as a palate cleanser, for a session or two, is wonderful. And a lot of zines fulfill that purpose. So, Goblinville Gazette, check it out. What do we have next? Okay. Okay. Is that in the center there? So just a little word on this. Joshua L.H. Burnett, or Josh Burnett, or Josh, to his even better friends, is a friend of mine that I had met in the Hyperborea campaign that I joined a couple years ago, either right before or right around the pandemic and lockdown hit. Josh has become a personal friend over the years. Absolutely enjoy his company that we share online. Wonderfully hilarious, insightful, talented, and such. So, disclaimer: I may be a little bit biased towards liking this, regardless of the material here. But I do have Josh's other entries. He does other zines. He does quite a bit of a DCC RPG support material, and they're all fantastic. So bias and friendship aside, I do feel that this is another zine that is not going to disappoint. So, but I do remember supporting this. This, like so many other zines during the pandemic, was delayed, and rightfully so. But this was definitely something that I had purchased and had supported when Josh had brought this out in the Zine Quest Kickstarter. Was it last year or the year before? Don't remember. Excuse me a moment. Just need something to drink. All right. Let's continue with the unprofessional aspect that is me. So Them's Monsters. What is Them's Monsters? Well, first off, it's compatible with Dungeon Crawl Classics, a game I kind of like a little bit. But I absolutely love Dungeon Crawl Classics. So Them's Monsters, a collection of curious creatures for Dungeon Crawl Classics by Joshua L.H. Burnett. And on the back, I like this. Some zines don't have it. Some zines do. But I do like having the information on the back cover. Just even if it's just a minor breakdown of what it is, doesn't have to be a giant paragraph or multiple paragraphs of what's inside, but just something. So, the Sanity Assassin, the Terrible Infant, the Dreaded Humbaba. Who are those, you ask? Them's Monsters. Inside the slender volume, you will find brand new fantastical creatures for use with the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game. Included Carrion Knight, Chaos Ooze, Cleric Lick Mountain, Crovoborge, hope I'm pronouncing that right, Cyber Snail. Word of note, Josh likes snails, which you can definitely find that out if you take a look at his other offering called Crepuscular. Yes, look for it. Eyeless Dead, Humbaba, Iron Medusa, Millennium Tortoise, Moldus and Covey. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. Pumpkin Knight, Rawhead, Sanity Assassin, Sludge Dwarf, Sludge Golem, Terrible Infant, Void Belly Giant, and Weremoose. just off the bat, just about every one of those names, will immediately scream Dungeon Crawl Classics for those who are DCC fans. Not because they're anyone's but just the names themselves have that wonderful kind of DCC flavor to them without even knowing what they're about. This amazing zine introduces a new playable class, the Dungle, a race of hardy little beetle people. You'll also experience Grist for the Mill, a one-page zero-level funnel. Okay, so let's take a look at it. And the artwork here is done by Josh. It's a light, cartoon aesthetic to it. Wonderfully talented, and it's and appealing in its own right. And one of the things about Dungeon Crawl Classics is it does kind of, its artwork is a variety of multi-talented people that evoke that wonderful Dungeon Crawl Classic sense of old school aspects. But their styles vary, but they still, for whatever reason, just have that kind of that DCC connection to them. Even if that wasn't there, I don't know, I would probably almost think, if I didn't know Josh and I didn't know this was Dungeon Crawl Classics, that my guess would be that but my guess would be that just looking at the artwork, that this would, be something compatible with Dungeon Crawl Classics. So, and Josh does, I can't speak for him entirely. I think I have this in 2 or 3 of his other books that he's done, but he does include these wonderful little cartoons in them that, to me, kind of bring me back to the day of, Dragon Magazine or Dungeon Magazine, where with all the material you have inside, there was always, some sort of cartoon or ongoing cartoon in the back that you always looked forward to. So, and Josh, either intentionally or unintentionally does that. So here we go. Let's just take a look. So yeah, so there's no wasting time. We've got our, we've got a heart, this comic here that Josh has done, and we'll see that at the bottom of here, some monsters involved called the Slug Boys have their DCC stats. Fantastic. And then we have Chance the Warrior and Moonblossom the Wizard, which Josh can correct me if I'm wrong later on, but I believe these are 2 ongoing characters that have moved through the various books that he's done. And also want to point out, edited by Leighton Connor. Those 2 do work together quite frequently. So they are the they go hand in hand sometimes. So excuse me, a little dry there. So we just jump right into the game. So we've got Carrion Knight, wonderful piece of art here, and like I said, I'm a fan of my friends first, which I kind of feel tends to be the case for quite a few people. And so I just, regardless of, how I feel about the material in here, I consider Josh a friend, so I'm going to support this regardless of how it is. I mean, unless it's absolute trash, I don't have a problem telling my friends, like, hey, this, you should try harder in certain regards, but if it's something that I like, it's going to garner my full support. And even if it's something that I feel needs work, it's still going to get my support regardless of it, but in addition to some critiques to, say, hey, this is a wonderful thing. Maybe try this or whatever, but ultimately it's your creation. Do what you will. But not the case here. So we've got Carrion Knight. Carrion Knights are the remains of officers who commanded the undead armies of the Witch Lords of Ur. So I don't know if the Witch Lords of Ur are an ongoing lore within Josh's creations for DCC, or he's just creating a bit of a evocative lore here to kind of spark the imagination. But we continue on with a couple paragraphs of what it is, and along with its wonderful stats. So once per turn, the Carrion Knight can release a 10-foot radius cloud of flies centered on itself. Anyone caught within this cloud takes 66 damage from blood loss. A DC 13 Fortitude save reduces the damage by half. Wow. Those are some hungry fucking flies. So Chaos Ooze. Get yourself a cauldron made of radioactive thorium. Drag the cauldron into the deep down below and fill it with demon spit. Finely dice wizard of sufficient power and place into the cauldron. Slowly boil for 666 days until the dice wizard becomes a fine slurry. Mix in the grounded bones of 17 elves and strike with a lightning bolt. If you're very, very unlucky, you'll create a chaos ooze. Fantastic. I mean, that's just that alone. I mean, without the stats, the art, whatever. That just tickles me. That's the kind of stuff that I like. So, just a quick reference of one of its special abilities: a character who strikes a chaos ooze with a non-magical weapon must make a luck roll. If the roll fails, their weapon melts like wax. So, for those who aren't familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics, it's deadly, as you can probably already tell. Cleric Lick Monster. All right, so we have an upright goat creature holding a club and a giant tongue flinging itself out towards you. Lore masters and church historians believe the so-called Cleric Lick Monster was developed by the blasphemous wizards 1,000 years ago during the infamous Atheist War, when the League of Sorcerers declared war against the gods and their servants. I mean, even if you don't use the monster, you have material to throw, something about the Atheist War and the League of Sorcerers into your campaign. So you've got material on top of the monster, and that's the value aspect of some of these zines. Is that sure, he could have just thrown a monster in here with a bit of information on what it does, along with some stats, and then details of its special abilities and game mechanic terms, but for people like Josh and others, it seems like they enjoy, adding this thematic aspect to it. These imaginary, overtones and undertones that make these creatures livable, alive, I should say, not livable, alive. That gives them life, that presents them more than just something to stick your sword in and try to get experience or treasure. So let's see. So I'm not going to go through all of these. There's quite a few here, but his special ability, just because it's an upright goat with a giant tongue, a cleric or other spellcaster that uses clerical spells hit by the monster's lick attack must make a DC 15 will save or gain 1d3 disapproval. Crap. And take a negative die penalty to all spellcasting rolls for the next 1d6 turns. Die penalties from multiple lick attacks don't stack, but disapproval does. Wow. So if your cleric in your DCC campaign is really rubbing you the wrong way, I highly recommend a Cleric Lick Monster. Just kidding. So continuing on. So every one of these, have this wonderful artwork done by Josh, along with some fantastic material associated with them, along with their stats usable for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Okay, so here's the new class. Once again, this is probably running about how many minutes? Yeah, this is almost an hour. So we'll just take a look at the class here. So Dungle. Scholars believe that Dungles evolved from the dire dung beetle that haunt the glowing forest far to the south of Zothma Ghoul. In time, they moved into the great necropolis upon which the crepuscular city would eventually be built. So yeah, right then and there, this is part of Josh's ever increasing lore in this world that he's created that deals with his other zine that I'm familiar with, the crepuscular zine. So, anyways, forming loose tribes within the mighty dungeon, Dungles function as scavengers and often served as minions of more powerful monsters. When Imperius Perfectus sorry. When Imperius Perfectus conquered the necropolis and built his city atop it, he offered the Dungles an opportunity to live and work within the city. So yeah, right there, I'm just, if you get a chance, if Josh is running a game, whether it be online or somewhere at a con, I dare say hop into it, because it's just from the writing alone, or from what I've gotten to know from Josh the past couple of years, you're in for a treat. and you're not in for the standard ride, and there's going to be stuff flung at you that you've never heard of, but it sounds like it's going to be thoroughly enjoyable regardless. So yada, 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 going on from there. So the Dungle class. A Dungle gains 1d8 hit points at each level. Fantastic. Bug size. Dungles are small creatures, usually around 3 feet tall, and rarely weighing more than 50 pounds. Let's see here. They are slow because they have short legs. They have a thick shell, so that adds to their armor class. Toxin resistance, having to evolve from dung beetles. Dungles are utterly immune to all natural diseases and poisons. And hardy. Dungles are amazingly hardy and adaptive with an almost supernatural survival instinct. Unlike most other classes, the Dungle doesn't have static saving throw modifiers. Instead, it has a saving throw bonus die that increases with each level. When it has to make a saving throw, the Dungle rolls this die along with a d20 and any relevant ability modifiers. For instance, a third-level Dungle with a 16 agility would make a reflex saving throw by rolling 1d20 plus 1d5 plus 2. I mean, yeah. If your species spent its time rolling around through shit for, since the dawn of time began, I expect you to be immune to a lot of stuff, and rightfully so. All right, so the Eyeless Dead. We're continuing on with more monsters, and the Iron Medusa. So a lot of interesting evocative monsters, and then we have his Grist of the Mill, his funnel, with some more wonderful artwork here in regards to the map, the details of the map, Millennium Tortoise, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that again, Rawhead, the Sanity Assassin, ooh, I just love the sound of that, the Sludge Dwarf. And we've got the Sludge Golem, the Terrible Infant. Okay, let me take a moment here. The Terrible Infant is a giant human baby, twice the size of an elephant, crawling naked through caverns and large dungeon chambers on calloused hands and knees. Where its mouth should be is only a blank expanse of pink flesh. Where its eyes should be are 2 gaping mouths, full of jagged teeth and thrashing tentacle tongues. These mouths constantly wail and cry as though in pain or hunger. Some say the Terrible Infant is the orphan child of a dead god. Others believe it is the result of the forbidden union between elf and dwarf. Still, others speculate that this is a powerful result of some horrible mutation that fell upon a powerful and corrupt wizard. All fear what it might eventually grow up to be. It is always hungry. If you hear the cries of a baby 10 levels down in the dungeon, you should run. Oh, God, this is wonderful. Yeah. Yep, this is going to be used at some point, whether it be DCC, I don't care what it is. The Terrible Infant is going to make its appearance one way or another in whatever game that I'm running ASAP. 90 hit points, an AC of 16. It uses 2d20 for its attack. It's got a plus 12 to its melee, 46 plus grapple for a 20-foot reach, a movement of 20. The Terrible Infant's bite attacks have a 20-foot reach. Rubbery tentacle tongues lash out to grab and pull victims into its eye mouths. A character hit by the infant's bite attack is grappled. A grappled character cannot move and takes a negative 2 die penalty on all actions until they make a DC 17 strength roll to break free. The infant can use an action to automatically chew on a grappled character for 46 damage with no attack roll required. Lovely. I just love this. The Terrible Infant. Void-bellied giant. I think I could probably spend a whole hour talking about this book. So, in conclusion, thank you for reading. Thank you for reading Them's Monsters. If you like what you found here, please consider looking at my other projects. You can find me and my works at several fine internet locations. Twitter at Bernie the Flump, Patreon, patreon.com, JLHB, DriveThruRPG at JLHB-Polytechnic, or visit me at BernieTheFlump.com. And we continue on with his cartoon here, or his comic, and which goes on to give you stats for Cyclopsnick, the boss monster, or the monster boss. Sorry, that's my dyslexia kicking in. and then to the back of the book. So $12 is that. That's is that average nowadays for the zines? I mean, for the quality that you're getting here, yes. I mean, granted, it's not in color, but a lot of these color zines are going to be more than $12. But the quality of it, the format, what you're getting, the details, the attention to the details outside of just the stats and the monsters themselves by the author is, I think this is worth well above $12 and I don't know what I paid for these other ones, but just the same. So you can find this at those places mentioned. I'll have links to all the zines that I mentioned here after I find them, so you can go hunt them down yourselves if you find interest in them. But likewise, Josh's book here can also be found on the Goodman Games website, I believe. If not, his other offerings too, Dungeon Crawl Classics, are on there. Likewise, I believe in limited aspects they are in Exalted Funeral, but check it out through his suggestions here and the links that I'll have. So them's monsters. I absolutely adore this, probably because I adore Josh. But that aside, if I didn't know Josh, I would still adore this book. Them's monsters. Get it. What do we have here? We've got, let's see here. We are at 50 minutes. Is there something here that is short and simple that I can do before going on to part 2? Let's see here. Yeah, I think I can cover this relatively quick, and we'll just kind of make this an even hour. If you've sat through this whole thing, you are awesome. But I highly doubt anyone sits through most of these things that go beyond 15 minutes. But if you do, God bless you. You have a lot more patience than I do. I couldn't even sit through this for a full hour. But anyway, so checking that I'm still kind of in the center there. Yep. All right. Prattling on. Midderzine. More green for your game. Issue 5 from May 2020. Now, I believe that this particular zine, which, for those who are familiar with the Midderzine, which is done by Glenn Seal of Monkey Blood Design and Publishing, this is not something that was done through Zine Quest. This is an offering that Glenn provided through his website. But I could be wrong, but that's where I got them from. They may be available through other outlets. I know, once again, bringing up Exalted Funeral, I know they offer some of Glenn's stuff there. Likewise, whenever Exalted Funeral, gets their act together and opens up their inventory over in Europe or the UK, I'm sure you'll be able to get it there. But of course, if you're there, you can get it directly from Glenn's site to begin with. So this right here, this is, where I got it from was not through Zine Quest. If the Midderzine was presented through Zine Quest, my apologies, but this is just where I got it from. So what is the Midderzine? Midderzine is Glenn Seal's setting. It's kind of his alternative medieval setting for the United Kingdom and England. It is a fantastically imaginative setting of dealing with kind of like the Middle Age, Dark Ages-esque England, where a lot of these wonderful these people seem like that they're kind of pulled right out of almost like the Holy Grail, Monty Python, the Holy Grail setting. There's a lot of humor involved in it. It's just as deadly as any other old school setting, but only as deadly as you want it to be. But the attention to detail and the world that he's created, much like Josh has done with his crepuscular setting, the attention to detail and what he provides within it is beyond the scope of what an average singular person should be able to do, not just with the setting itself, but much like Josh and other people here. I'm just pointing out because I know Josh. Glenn is a wonderfully talented artist in his own right, and a fantastic cartographer. and wildly creative in the material and the other things that he does in regards to his adventures and fleshing out the world of the Midderlands. So, and one of the things that he has done to help flesh it out, to make it a little bit more economical and, easy to get this material out, rather than, throw it all into, the larger books that he's done, is create the Midderzine. The Midderzine, more green for your game. The color green is a running aspect within the Midderlands. The Midderlands has this consistent green kind of tinge to it throughout most of the area, due to and I'm going to draw a blank on it because it's been a while since I read it. But there's a certain material that exists underground that exudes this greenish glow and this greenish cloud that is everywhere. So the green is a center focus within the theme of a lot of things, and it gives off that when you're reading the description of it, it's nothing can make like this old school medieval English setting more creepy than the fogs rolling over the hills in the Midderlands as you hear the crying and baying of animals and creatures that you're not sure. Are those creatures? Are those monsters? Are they just, are those people? You're not sure. But the only thing that can make it creepier, in my opinion, is for all of that, and everything has this weird greenish tinge to it on top of it. So, all right, so the Midderzine, more green for your game, more fodder for your Midderlands OSR campaign setting. So this is number 5, and I believe he's done 6 or 7 of these. So right off the bat, you have, Glenn does, details of a variety of buildings, which he's done for the Midderlands, but also a lot of generic things that you can use for the game, which usually is accompanied by not just the drawing to give to give an idea of the look and feel of it, but sometimes accompanied by a map. But I don't think that's here, but nor is it necessary. So the town market. And we got the introduction. Hello, Midderfolk. It seems scandalous. I am working on this issue whilst issue 4, which is complete and awaiting lockdown to abate before putting it up on the website and Drive-Thru RPG, sits next to me in physical form awaiting to be released. If anything, lockdown has actually increased my availability to work on my things, my online social activity, more time to prepare content, and more internet gaming. Yes, I think it did that for quite a few of us. The gaming landscape has changed, and if anything, those that shied away from online gaming have been forced to embrace it to get their RPG fix. A very true aspect of lockdown. In fact, I don't think I would be here doing this silly little video if it wasn't for that. So try to find a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. That was the horrible aspect of, the pandemic, which we're still dealing with, and the actual lockdown that occurred when it was in full force, just a short time ago. Everyone has had time to be creative, and even the creatives have gone into overdrive, producing so much gaming content for us. It's been great to see. There's not a lot that we can thank this pandemic for, but I think, by and large, that our role-playing game communities have gained. I'm glad that I get time to explore Abbott's Bream a bit more and provide some slight snippets into what is the hometown of the Silver Hand. I love developing the settings, and one day I hope to reveal the big plot hook that underlies it, but now isn't the time. I hope you and your families are safe and well, and you're able to look on the brightest of sides in all of this. Anyway, with luck, this issue will provide some amusement and game juice for you. Remember, stay in the light of the Gloombug lanterns. Thank you, Glenn. May 2020. P.S. Here's a pig-faced orc for your viewing pleasure. Yes. Okay. So as we continue on here, we have Meet the Midderlander. This article is where we promote the work of another person that has helped us in our journey of self-publishing and whose work we greatly admire. In this issue, we welcome, fantastic. Taking the time in your own work to prop up and support someone else. There's no other term for it. It's a noble aspect. It's wonderful. This is something that I, not saying an expectation that everyone should be doing this, but it's definitely nice to see, especially in those where their success, has, far outshined those of other people who are doing the same thing. Juan Ochoa. Juan has been, Juan has been involved in providing art for all 3 Midderlands-related hardcovers to date: The Midderlands and Midderlands Expanded, and The Great City of London. Check all of those out. If you don't have them, you should buy them, and buy them right away. Juan's style is a joy to behold, and I am thrilled every time he submits stuff. Just wait until you see the Rycroft art later this year. So without further ado, where do you live? Is it cool? I live in Colombia, South America. It is cool, but heart-rendingly sad sometimes. What is your current favorite RPG? Currently, he's playing RuneQuest, role-playing in Glorantha. What is your all-time favorite RPG? It is an even split between Fate Core and Transhuman Space. What is your favorite Midderlands-related thing? Gloomium. So that's the material that I referenced earlier. If you lit in it, and it affects other things in the realm of the Midderlands. It doesn't just spew out greenish fog and makes things glow. It changes the aspect of those who get in touch with it within the game. If you lived in the Midlands, where would you live? Great London, obviously. Better takeout options. What is your best piece of RPG work to date, excluding the Midderlands, obviously, and where can we find it? People seem to like my work for Monster of the Week a lot. Okay, there you go. It can be found here in PDF format. And what is your favorite food? Barley and raw fish. Impossible to decide. Yeah, I like them both. Do you have a website? I do. It's juanochoa.co. And you can see some of my most recent work there. How can we commission you? Drop me a line on Twitter, my site's contact link, or to ochoa@gmail.co. Fantastic. Okay. So we have the Haven Gazette, the latest in hush murmurings from across the Haverland. So a lot of the at least in the beginnings, is done in kind of a Gazette or a Gazette newspaper format, where there's going to be a bit of adventure seeds and rumors here, along with some supplemental information with it. So we've got different different headlines here. Ogo Blakemore found, Netherfern needed, and Nether Seal. A strange vessel washed ashore in Port Mabel, and so on. The town of Abbott's Bream. And this will tell you in the Midderlands map hex 2104. When you get the Midderlands, I believe the map comes with it. You may need to purchase it separately, but Glenn's map of the Midderlands is divided into different hexes with numbers, and he has spent some time filling those in, which I'm not sure if... oh God, what is the other one? If within Old School Essentials, if that's done with their, is it Worm? It's not Wormwood. Is it Wormwood? God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. This has been going on for an hour. So, but anyways, so with each supplemental book that he has, or with each zine that he's done, I believe he's taken a bit to fill in some of these hex areas. And likewise, you're not beholden to it. If you've already filled it in yourself, move it to a different location. So we've got, so you may recognize, Glenn's style here, as far as his cartography is concerned. It is widely used. I could name the amount of books, that he has been involved in. But the one of note that I'm, am currently getting framed is the gigantic, beautiful, fantastic map of Hyperborea for astonishing swordsmen and sorcerers of Hyperborea. But most recently, he came out with a book of just maps. I'll throw a link in there, but it's a book of just maps that he did for Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and it's a beautiful book. So I'll put a link in there if you want to check that out too. Let's see here. Continuing onwards, so we've got the different locations on the map. A new location, the town market, which he's referenced here, just to give you a general idea of the look of it. And then, okay, so there's the map in question. So yeah, so usually he gives a side view, a side view of it from one angle to give you an idea of the look, but he includes a map with most of these things. And then with the different stalls and information of the people who are selling their wares there, slightly less shit, more slightly less shit stuffed tables. Slightly less shit curiosities. An example, number 7, a dusty leather book titled A Treatise on the Sewers of Great London. Slightly less shit, animal companions, familiars, and pets. Oh, boy. I love it. I wish I had a D30. I'd roll it right now. But let's see here. We'll just do round. We'll pick a gerbil that vomits, and when it sees blood, it's... Okay, so it vomits... okay, so a gerbil that vomits when it sees blood, but its advantages are it can pick pockets. There you go. Everybody wants that gerbil now. Old Goblin artifacts. So, I mean, it's obvious that Glenn Glenn does a lot of the old school OSR stuff here, which involves a lot of random tables, which I've confessed many a time that I love. And so you're going to find a lot of that within his works and whatnot. So we have a short story here, Honor Among Thieves by Gary Dawkins. And then we've got a new class, the Immortal. And this is going on, just over an hour. So I apologize, Glenn, if I'm not giving as much detail as the others, but I'm sure several people are snoring by now, if not more than 30 minutes ago. And anyways, so the new class, let's see here, Immortal. I'll just read it briefly. Immortals must generally be of lawful alignment. No one knows why a tiny proportion of Scottish children are born immortal. I see where we're going with this. It's possible that other nations and peoples have their own immortals. They just don't talk about it. Let's see here. The surviving immortals held a great council where they agreed to give up the whole there can be only one idea as a bad job and concentrate on their own lives. The council is called the Old Agreement, as it laid out the rules of conduct for living an immortal life and is treated as sacred law by a majority of the surviving immortals. A few bad apples still believe the old tales about killing another immortal to steal their power. These murderous individuals make life very difficult for the saner immortals. So we have a play on the Highlander, and rather than have the normal Highlander aspects, it sounds like they come together and said, "This is a bunch of shit. We're slicing off each other's heads. This is pointless. Let's just carry on and live our immortal lives and not worry about gaining power from each other. Let's coexist." Okay, that's just a guess. So carrying on. So yeah, wonderfully detailed. I mean, several pages here. New monsters, a March Woodkin. March Woodkin are human-sized anthropomorphic fungi that roam the March woods and protect the fungi that grow there. New oddities. I'll just read one of them here. Legendary turnip. These turnips are said to turn the ground in which they are buried and up to a 100-foot radius around it into a plot of greatly fertile ground. Other produce grown in this ground provides up to 200% yield, which most produce being twice the usual size. Turnips grown in this ground are particularly affected, yields of up to 300%, and the biggest turnips in the country. They are violent and clandestine activities surrounding these items, especially in the dark underworld of competitive crop growing. Value 100 gold quids. And then we have the OGL, and then we have here a drawing of one of the two objects, the oddities here, the silver hand ring, and the merchant's haggle, which is a black fez. There we are. So that is the Midderzine. I mean, it's a variety of information in here. It's almost, it's kind of done in a kind of a fanzine format where, you're going to have a character, you're going to have a bit of information, an adventure seed, maybe a small adventure within it. And other information, a short story. Wonderful. I mean, this little bit of information is definitely going to breathe more life into your role-playing game itself, or even if you're playing within the Midderlands. A wonderful, inexpensive way to supplement your game, which is, a lot of what a lot of these scenes are, and allows you to, or even take bits of this. It's designed to spark your imagination, but likewise to, support the world that he's created without having people to shell out too much money. So there you are. So that's the Midderzine. Check out Glenn's, actual Midderlands setting and books that he has available. I'll post a link to that in the description also. So there we are. So I'm just going to do just a brief recap of what we've looked at here. We've looked at the hidden hand of the Horla for designed for use with old school essentials, done by Appendix N Entertainment. We've taken a look at the Goblinville Gazette, which was done by Narrative Dynamics as part of the Zine Quest run. We had Them's Monsters, which is done by Joshua L.H. Burnett for the DCC RPG role-playing system. And finally, we have the Midderzine, which was done by a variety of people, but essentially headed by Glenn Seal for his Midderlands campaign setting and their involved. So I want to thank you for your time. This has been an hour. I may edit this down. I don't know if there's much that I can, or I may just throw it up as is and just let you guys deal with it. Don't really care, but even if just from the thumbnail of me showing these off, get somebody to check out any one of these, then my work here is done. So we will get to the others in a part 2 another day and give them a bit of attention. Hope my droning on hasn't lulled you to sleep, but if it has, more power to you. You obviously need some rest. So I'm Scott, and this has been a poll from the shelf, focusing on some of the zines in my collection. You can find me on Twitter at Hail Orcus Dorcas. Definitely look for my the podcasts that I do, Titterpigs, the tabletop RPG podcast I do with Keith from RollingBoxCars.com. Definitely check out his site. And there you are. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing another unboxing here for another video or continuing on with the zine thing. But, that reminds me, definitely check out Titterpigs this month, as Keith and I are going to be focusing, our topic's going to be on zines, and to coincide with Zine Month here. And we are going to have a special guest with us to discuss, all things zine. Take care, everyone.